As a matter of fact, we've been brought in a number of times by the PR firms. We need help. We got to fix Google. Like the first page of Google's a mess. I'll give you one example. This oil and gas company I mentioned, the chief executive got a donation from a senator, and it was a 3-month internship, and they sold it at charity auction at his synagogue. And the guy who owns Girls Gone Wild bought the donation, and he thought it was clever, and he was going to have the girls working in the senator's office and for the summer, and they were going to film the whole thing. So of course the senator said no, and this guy had to take one for the team and say that the senator hadn't agreed to the internship, and it was all on him. And so literally when you Google this guy's name, this crazy picture of the Girls Gone Wild guy came up, all these pictures and all these stories, and his family was tied in politically, so it was like all over the news. This one I call start with the low-hanging fruit. So like the first thing is get some easy wins. And one of the easiest wins is run a Google ad on your name or the term you're trying to protect. Like people don't realize it's so easy. You just put a pay-per-click Google ad, and the first thing they're going to see is a Google ad that you own that goes to your page, your press release, and you can control your name. And then the second thing we did for this guy is we bought 10 domains. We bought hisname.com, hisname.org, his first name dash last name.com. And we created a bunch of websites. I mean, this guy done a ton of charity work, all kinds of stuff in the community, worked very extensively with the university. So each of those websites told a story about him and his brand and his company. And we very quickly search engine optimized those individual websites so that they started coming up when you searched his name. The other thing we had to do is a ton of search engine image optimization. So you take a whole bunch of pictures, you create a whole bunch of images, you put all those images on those websites, and you name the image with his name, obviously straightforward, but you got to do a lot of it because maybe half of those images Google's going to register and show in the image section. But we had to get this crazy image of the Girls Gone Wild guy out of the picture. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whatever time this podcast finds you, welcome to the 10 Golden Rules of Internet Marketing for Law Firms podcast. Great guest today, Evan Nierman. He's a crisis whisperer, a media strategist. He's the guy you call when your reputation is on fire. And Evan, will get to you in 2 minutes because today we're going to do something really cool. We're going to do the 10 Golden Rules of Reputation Management and Crisis Communications. Evan is definitely the guy you call when the proverbial SHI hockey stick hits the fan. And we've done a lot of work on the back end of fixing your Google reputation. One quick commercial I always start with, if you like this and you make it to the end, do me a favor, click the subscribe button on YouTube, or if you're listening on one of the podcast services, that helps us get some amazing guests like Evan, and click the like button. So thank you very much. Evan, welcome to the 10 Golden Rules podcast.
Thanks, Jay. It's great to be with you today. I'm looking forward to it.
So Red Banyan is his company. They're an elite crisis PR firm. They've been behind the scenes of some amazing reputation management and crisis communications with CEOs, celebrities, attorneys. We're going to talk a little bit about that. He's authored books on crisis communications. He's a super dad. He was the captain of his soccer team, and he toured Europe with MC Hammer. So Evan, tell us a little bit about your journey.
Every day is an adventure when it comes to high stakes and crisis PR. And for me, a question I get all the time is, how did you end up working in this very unique niche field? And the answer is pretty simple. I started my career in Washington, D.C. So if ever there's a place where reputations go to die and there's constant need to manage situations with complexity, that's happening day in, day out in Washington, D.C. So the first 15 years of my career were spent in and around politics and policy in Washington, working in advocacy and then working in high stakes crisis communications. Then I actually made a journey to South Florida, of all places, to work at a startup, did the startup thing for about a year and a half, and then ultimately decided I wanted to create the kind of firm that I was looking for, but I couldn't find when I was looking to get a job in high stakes crisis communication. So I set out to create the firm that I was always looking to be a part of. And that's what I've been doing the last 14 years is building Red Banyan and helping great people and good organizations facing complex circumstances.
That's amazing because I tell exactly the same thing. I worked at Coca-Cola, McDonald's in traditional marketing, and then Sprint. We got into digital, and I moved to ediets.com, an online diet company. We grew that company to $60 million. And when I wrote the 10 Golden Rules of Online Marketing, and I gave a presentation at the Direct Marketing Association, a bunch of people came running up to me and they said, "We want to hire you as a consultant." And I realized they were looking for what I was looking for at eDiets. It was 2003. We couldn't find anyone who was strategic and had some digital chops. And I realized there's a real opportunity in the marketplace because I was looking for exactly that. And that's the vision we use to create 10 Golden Rules.
I think it happens a lot with entrepreneurs. You go looking for something and you find it doesn't exist, and you kind of scratch your head and go, I can't believe this isn't in the marketplace. Well, I guess I better go and create it. So I think it's a pretty common story.
That's awesome. So you've had some incredible brushes with celebrity. Tell us a little bit about MC Hammer and touring Europe.
MC Hammer definitely had its heyday back in the 90s. But one of the remarkable things is once you're MC Hammer, you are always MC Hammer. And even now, as he goes around the world, people recognize him. And when we were in London, we were getting chased by paparazzi who wanted to catch him on camera. And I will tell you, I was a very young guy at that point, pretty early in my career, and we were sitting around a table with a bunch of business folks working on a deal, and we were in a beautiful hotel in London called the Connaught, which is a very
Yeah,
traditional,
gorgeous. Yeah.
beautiful, old school English hotel. And actually, when Hammer sat down, they asked him to take his hat off because he was wearing a beanie, and they came and said,
Yeah.
"Pardon me, sir. We hate to trouble you." It was very English, but they asked him to take his hat off.
Very proper.
And so then as they came around the table, I happened to be sitting in this horseshoe booth, and they asked me what I wanted, and I didn't really know. So I just asked for a beer. And then they turned to Hammer and he said something along the lines of 1985 Dom Perignon. And I turned to the waiter and I said, you know what? I'm going to have what he's having.
Perfect. And was he wearing the pants, the crazy puffy pants?
No,
Or
he doesn't wear the Hammer pants anymore, but
yeah.
he still keeps himself in pretty good shape. And I could tell you the guy can still dance. He's
Okay,
still got
great.
that.
Well, why don't we do this? Let's jump into the 10 golden rules of reputation management and crisis communications. And for those who've listened to a few of our recent podcasts, we're tapping our experts to compile their expertise into 10 rules just for a little fun and structure to these conversations. We're going to start out with Evans, and please include a few of the stories of these celebrity and big company crisis communications in some of these examples. So the first one is called protect yourself in advance. Why don't you talk about what people should do before they get in trouble?
When it comes to crisis communications and reputation management, it's one of these scenarios where an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And that's very, very true when it comes to things that can threaten your reputation or your revenue. And so I would say north of 90% of the crises that my team at Red Banyan and I deal with have some tie-in to an online mishap. And so one of the ways that individuals and companies can protect themselves in advance is to think before you post online. And if you follow the rules of share with care and post with purpose as it relates to social media, and you teach your team that philosophy, then before you hit send or post, you actually think about, am I revealing any confidential information? Am I putting things out there that ultimately aren't going to reflect well on either me or my organization? And if you share with care and if you post with purpose, meaning what's the point of the social media post? Is it going to age well? Does it advance the narrative you want about yourself? If you follow those two basic rules, you can avoid a lot of problems down the road when it comes to self-inflicted wounds related to social media.
And a lot of the times I find that companies that have come to us, and basically when they come to 10 golden rules, they're looking to fix the Google, right? Like it's like the first page of Google when you search the whether it's that we've done the CEO or we've worked with a bank, we've worked with a university, we've worked with the university president, getting in Google hot water. The mistake a lot of folks made is they didn't have any kind of content strategy going forward. I say the simplest thing is just post one piece of content a week, and every company should do it. One of our clients that we talk a lot about in reputation management is an oil and gas company. So they probably didn't think they needed to produce any content. But when the CEO got in trouble, all their big deals were at risk. And so the simplest thing is just all you need is one article a week, one blog post. And then we call it cascading content, like a river cascades over a waterfall and creates little waterfalls and little streams and tributaries and rivers. Put that initial blog post on your website and then post on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and link back to your website. At least you've got a baseline out there of good content. You've got a Facebook page with some followers, and your website's got a teeny bit of SEO to it. So many times we're starting out from scratch, and literally this guy didn't have a LinkedIn, the company didn't have any social media, so we had to really dig him out of a hole. So the next one, obviously, when the SHIT hits the fan, we said take action when the SHIT hits the fan. So Evan, you get that emergency phone call. What's the first things they need to do, and what's the first things you do when they hire you?
Yeah, well, even before they contact Red Banyan or a firm like ours, is for all the listeners of this podcast, at the first hint of a problem, that is the time when you should be gearing yourself up and jumping into the fray. A lot of times what happens is people end up in analysis paralysis. They don't know what to do. They're feeling overwhelmed. They don't pick up the phone and make that call. They don't send that email. And that can be very problematic because in today's hyper-connected world, if you don't take immediate action, you can have a cascading effect going the other way, and you can have media piling on and social media discussions happening. And before you know it, 10 minutes turns into an hour, can turn into days of negative exposure for you or your brand. And so really being willing to take action quickly and not overthink it is vital. And so that's something that unfortunately a lot of times companies, they hope and pray that the news cycles
It'll go away. Yeah.
and that's not a good effective strategy. You have to err on the side of action.
Yeah. I think when these things happen, you have to have some kind of statement, or the non-statement probably makes it worse, right?
Not having a statement is in itself communicating, or a mistake that a lot of attorneys make. And it's amazing to me that you still see this in this day and age is they'll actually advise clients to say no comment, or the attorneys themselves will say no comment, which in my view is probably worse than just not accepting the phone call or not speaking at all with the reporter. Because when you say no comment, you're actually making a comment. And I think that there's a misperception, oftentimes among attorneys, that because there's the potential for their client to have legal repercussions, or you're talking about a situation where there's already litigation, there's a fear that if you say something, it could impact negatively the outcome in the courtroom. And that's actually, there's almost always something you can say and something that is not going to jeopardize the future of your client. They need to prevail in court as well as in the court of public opinion. So I would just advise any and all attorneys to open your mind a little bit to the possibility that you can always pretty much say something for your client. Doesn't mean you have to answer whatever pointed question may come in from the reporter, or you may not be commenting on the specifics of the case, but you could at least say something nice about the company or the individual. You could drive your messaging in some way. And what that does is it means when the story is written, it's not all about the negatives, or they're not citing a police report or the charges and then just having a footnote, reached by phone, they declined comment. Instead, you could say something, and then you're actually taking up real estate in that piece so that you're giving people a more balanced view, and you're actually saying something rather than nothing.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like the lawyer version is no comment, but the consumer take on no comment or plead the fifth is that person's guilty. They're so guilty. So you're
Yeah,
right, it gets worse.
there's an
So
assumption of guilt. That's
yeah,
true.
the next golden rule, I like this one. You said press the truth. What does that mean from a crisis management standpoint?
Press the truth is a philosophy that I articulated in my first book, Crisis Averted. And we advise our clients that when they're facing a circumstance, it is not enough to simply tell the truth. Telling the truth used to work, but that was a different world and it didn't come fast and furious. And there wasn't interconnectedness between social media and mainstream media. And so when I talk about the concept of press the truth, what I'm saying is you can't be reactive and slow. You can't abide the idea that, well, we'll eventually get our day in court and we'll prevail. Because what happens a lot of times is by the time the trial gets scheduled and it happens and the case either settles or you do prevail in court, by then you've eroded so much brand value that it's really a Pyrrhic victory. When you choose to press the truth, it means that you're making a decision to fight, to defend your reputation, and to advance your interests. And so it's active, it's proactive, and it means being willing to engage. And no comment or declining to take the call, I would put that in the reactive, negative bucket. Whereas if you're going to press the truth, it means you have a strategy in place for how you're going to advance a narrative that puts you, your client, in the right light.
Yeah, if the stock price is already down to 80%, you got a big problem. All right.
Exactly.
The next one, we said start with the low-hanging fruit. I'm going to parlay this one. I'm going to jump in here because we often get the call. Okay, as a matter of fact, we've been brought in a number of times by the PR firms. We need help. We got to fix Google. Like the first page of Google's a mess. I'll give you one example. This oil and gas company I mentioned, the chief executive got a donation from a senator, and it was a 3-month internship, and they sold it at charity auction at his synagogue. And the guy who owns Girls Gone Wild bought the donation, and he thought it was clever, and he was going to have the girls working in the senator's office and for the summer, and they were going to film the whole thing. So of course the senator said no, and this guy had to take one for the team and say that the senator hadn't agreed to the internship, and it was all on him. And so literally when you Google this guy's name, this crazy picture of the Girls Gone Wild guy came up, all these pictures and all these stories, and his family was tied in politically, so it was like all over the news. This one I call start with the low-hanging fruit. So like the first thing is get some easy wins. And one of the easiest wins is run a Google ad on your name or the term you're trying to protect. Like people don't realize it's so easy. You just put a pay-per-click Google ad, and the first thing they're going to see is a Google ad that you own that goes to your page, your press release, and you can control your name. And then the second thing we did for this guy is we bought 10 domains. We bought hisname.com, hisname.org, his first name dash last name.com. And we created a bunch of websites. I mean, this guy done a ton of charity work, all kinds of stuff in the community, worked very extensively with the university. So each of those websites told a story about him and his brand and his company. And we very quickly search engine optimized those individual websites so that they started coming up when you searched his name. The other thing we had to do is a ton of search engine image optimization. So you take a whole bunch of pictures, you create a whole bunch of images, you put all those images on those websites, and you name the image with his name, obviously straightforward, but you got to do a lot of it because maybe half of those images Google's going to register and show in the image section, but we had to get this crazy image of the Girls Gone Wild guy out of the picture. We search engine optimized his website. Like he didn't even have a bio page on his website. So they had an existing business website, but he wasn't prominently featured on there. And basic search engine optimization, create a page named with his name at the top of the name. Like each page is website.com/ and then you put his name. And so you're search engine optimizing, and you have a picture of him with his name, and you have a bio of him with his name. Simple, basic stuff that they didn't have in place. We're basically trying to control that first impression on Google. And relatively quickly, within 3 to 4 months, we were able to get 9 of the first positions on Google and really repair the Google image search, where 5 of the 6 images that showed up in that strip of images when you did the search We had 5 of the 6 images, so it's all managed reputation management. You can't make some stuff go away, but you can. We'll talk about how you do that. But for the most part, it's just pushing the bad stuff down Google by bringing more optimized, more current stuff to the top of the page. You want to add in what you guys do on your side?
Yeah, that's great. And I think there's some really good strategies. And I think that speaks to what we were talking about before about pressing the truth. You rather than allowing your client to be defined by negative media coverage, instead you're driving a narrative and painting a picture of who this person is in a fuller sense by creating those websites and optimizing them. So I think it's smart and it's effective. And it also is a good reminder in that case, you're in a situation where the person didn't have some of those basic things that they should really be investing in beforehand. Because if you've already got a website, you've already got a strong bio, and you've got a blog, for instance, then you have content that's out there. I think one thing that surprises individuals is those who try to fly below the radar and they don't invest any time and effort in creating content at all, and they have no presence online, it actually ironically leaves them more susceptible. So when something negative inevitably happens, then all the people see is the negative and they're not inoculated by having the positive.
1,000%. All right. Well, the next golden rule is to own the important real estate. So you want to own every square inch of your name. I talked about that a minute ago that we did it reactively, but you want to do it proactively. One of the things a lot of companies don't realize, we own 10goldenrules.com, but we also own 10, like the number 10goldenrules.com, and we also own the .org, the .info, the .co. You got to protect your brand. You've got to own all those variants. You can set up basic little websites, or you can just use those domain names and point them to your main domain name. And then you've got to have like social media profiles, a few press releases. Like you should do a press release every quarter. Every company has at least something they did of value, or a big case they won, big settlement, some firm highlights. Evan, what do you guys do to help firms own the real estate?
Yeah, again, everything you're saying is accurate. And the way to own the real estate is to have a modern, up-to-date website, since really that's the first place that people are going to look for basic information about you. And I'm always amazed at the number of attorneys or firms that haven't felt the need to update the website, because especially a lot of times referrals, the revenue streams involve referrals from other attorneys, which is great. But at the same time, when that referral is made, where does someone go in order to check out the attorney who they're thinking about hiring? They look at them up on their website. And it's actually pretty easy. It's easier than it's ever been before to have a professional looking website where it's modern, it's clean, it shows up well on mobile, which is really important because most people are checking you out on their phone or their tablet as opposed to sitting down at a desktop.
Do you know what the guideline is to when you need to update your website?
I'm waiting for it. The suspense
Yeah.
is keeping me.
So 5 years, 4 to 5 years, you should check out when you built your website, because enough changes with Google and enough changes with design styles. If you look at a 4 or 5 year old website today, it's probably got a blacked out image and the text is white, because we didn't know how to make beautiful images and text work together back then. And it's sort of a design style. And the consumer just finds your website looks dated. So 4 or 5 years. And by the way, if you think, oh yeah, we just redid our website, go check the date and the day you paid that guy to do your website. It was probably 5 years ago. All right, next up, golden rule number 6 for crisis management reputation is monitor and measure. People don't realize this. It's free to set up a Google alert on your name, your CEO's name, and your company name. And that's like a basic must for everybody. And then you can set it up to get the email every day or once a week. And Google Alerts sends you an email every time your name comes up. Now, if you have the same name as Aaron Rodgers, who was in the media yesterday, NFL quarterback, obviously it's going to be a little bit of clutter if there's a famous celebrity with your name. But that's basic stuff that you should do. And then there's more advanced tools like sentiment tracking that can tell you about tone across social media platforms. And you can even set up alerts in Chat GPT for your firm name. Evan, what are some of the things you guys do to monitor and measure? And by the way, this is proactive and reactive. Obviously, it's something we do immediately when we take on a reputation management project.
Yeah, as you said, Google Alerts are cheap in that they cost absolutely nothing and it's easy. Our firm we pay a lot of money to have more advanced social media monitoring tools. And for us, we need to do that because when we're dealing with a client who has faced some sort of media exposure that's negative, it's really important for us to be able to see, are the efforts that we're taking on behalf of the client working or not just qualitatively, but also quantitatively. And so now there are tools that are out there that agencies, marketing agencies, or crisis management firms have access to, which can enable you to track, monitor, measure, and it's even as sophisticated as looking at crawling the overall web and seeing, is overall sentiment towards this brand or this person negative, neutral, or positive. And it's really important to be able to look to data to tell you whether or not the efforts that you're engaging in are being effective or not. Do more of what works and move on if something isn't really working.
Awesome. Well, next up,
By the way, I feel really bad. There's got to be some other Jay Berkowitz out there who wants to own some real estate on Google, but because you invest so much time and effort and you have the expertise, anyone who looks for that poor Jay Berkowitz is only going to find you and 10 golden rules. So my
yeah,
condolences to the other Jay
no,
Berkowitz.
no, you're right. And there's two very important Jay Berkowitzes. There's a Professor Jay Berkowitz and a Dr. Jay Berkowitz. And I'm sure they're a lot more important for society. But unfortunately for them, you're right. I remember I was at Google in 2004 when they launched Gmail, and I got jberkowitz at gmail.com. And every time like Twitter came along and whatever it is, Clubhouse, I get the Jay Berkowitz ID on all the social media because they probably don't hear about it for 3 years. Matter of fact, I get a bunch of emails to Dr. Jay Berkowitz, and I always have to forward them to the person. jberkowitz at gmail.com. All right. So next up is a similar thought pattern. You want to manage Google and social media reviews. So proactively, we recommend, like everyone was saying earlier, you've got to build your fort, right? So you've got to have some Google reviews, and that's very, very important for your SEO and for if you're running local service ads and local SEO to come up in the Google Maps. So you've got to have a strategy to get happy clients to send you reviews. The simplest thing is just send them the link, like in your Google business profile, your GBP, which is what companies own on the back end of the Google Maps, right? You own your Google business profile. There's a link in there you can send people. It's super easy. And then they can go directly and do the review. But you should have a proactive program where after you finish a case for a client, particularly like in PI, the paralegals should request those Google reviews. We have a whole program where we send out gift boxes 30 days after. So the paralegals get an incentive, a $50 gift certificate if they get a 5-star review. And then we send out these kits. You could use tools like Bird Eye, makes it easier to get Google reviews, but you definitely want to have a proactive program where you're looking at your Google reviews and all of the other social media. So, if you have a junior person who's your social media person, sometimes we call it a twin turn, like a Twitter intern, and should have, we said earlier, at the very least, you should have someone writing a blog every week and posting all those things on social media. You should make it part of that person's job to monitor all the social media and respond to things on Facebook. And maybe you'll catch someone getting upset before it could blow up. And if you respond on social media and dealt with an issue before they write a blog post or do a video that goes viral. So talk about what you all do to manage Google reviews and social media reviews.
And Google reviews really matter because not just Google reviews, but all of these review websites. And we know from statistics that 85% of consumers say that reviews impact their buying decision. So for an attorney, that would mean they're looking at the reviews and looking at the online chatter related to an attorney or the firm before they perhaps pick up the phone and make the appointment, etc. They want to see. And I also think part of it is just human nature. If you go and you look at an attorney and they've got 27 5-star reviews and they've got 2 1-star reviews, you naturally are like, ooh, the outlier is the 1-stars. I'm going to check
Yeah.
those out. One thing I hear from attorneys a lot is they're hesitant and reluctant to respond to negative reviews because they're concerned that they could get into trouble with the bar. And I would encourage you to consider that through a slightly different lens. And that is, people are going to look at your reviews, good, bad, and indifferent. And without revealing any specifics related to the case and thereby violating attorney-client privilege, you could say something positive. This is the same mindset that I was talking about not just saying no comment. So if you get a negative review, you don't have to go into debating the client about what happened in their case. You could just reaffirm how you as a firm always try to get the best possible result for your client. It's better to say something than nothing. And the other thing to think about when it comes to reviews is you shouldn't write a response to a negative review to try to win over the person who's already panned you online. It's a lost cause. But what you're doing is you're providing a response just so that when someone comes along, they don't just take what that person is saying as the gospel truth. And instead, you respond in a way that makes you look professional and courteous and be the bigger person. And again, you can do this without raising the ire of the bar. So don't be hesitant to press the truth about all of the aspects of your firm and how you try to get the result for your client and how you have great integrity. It bears repeating again and again. So don't lose that opportunity by ceding the battlefield to the haters.
Yeah, exactly what Evan said. You should definitely respond to every review, particularly negative reviews. The other thing you can do is try and take it offline. If the review is made by R. Sanchez and you can find the file and you know who R. Sanchez is, you should reach out to him. I think I heard John Morgan, the CEO of Morgan, he invites people to his office in Orlando. He'll send a car for them to try and make good and get that review taken down. And you want to deal with it with that level of importance. And then the other thing is if you can't find R. Sanchez in your files, your post can be, hey, R. Sanchez, I'm really sorry to hear you had a bad experience with our firm. We can't find an R. Sanchez anywhere in our files. So please reach out to us and we'd be happy to make good on anything that we try and resolve the issue. So you're showing that, hey, this was a competitor, this is a fake. And particularly if R. Sanchez, the only Google review she or he ever did was that one negative review for you.
That's
So
true. And in some cases, you can actually get, if you can prove or show that the person wasn't actually a client, it violates the terms of service. And therefore, you can many times actually get that review taken down.
So next up is advanced strategies, and that's a good point. People always ask me, how can we get this removed? And so you can get Google reviews removed if there's only like 3 or 4 reasons why Google will do it, but if you violate Google's terms of service. So any swearing, foul language, if they do defaming, I forget the term for that, but there's like 3 or 4 things. So you can just Google Google review terms of service or rules and regulations, and you'll find if there's any of those exact criteria, you can submit a request to Google and they will take that review down. But 9 times out of 10, you can't get that review removed. The person has a right to say what they want to say in the world of Google. We have been able to get entire websites redacted, and Google will show they'll still show it in the search results at the very bottom of the first page, and they'll say this website was redacted. But we've been able to get Google to actually remove websites. Again, you've got to take a legal action. You've got to find a purpose. And this is we had a guy who's doing it. It's very, very expensive, but we were able to do it successfully a couple times. What other types of advanced strategies have you guys taken, Evan?
Yeah, I think there are more opportunities to get that stuff taken down than many people realize. And it can include things from fake reviews from competitors or from people who are not your customer to people who are trying to extort you. It happens all the time. And even there is a cottage industry actually of trolls who are out there who will go and they'll scrape the websites to look for people who are arrested and they'll put their mugshots up. And then if you approach them, they'll actually take down the mugshots. They'll basically hold it hostage. And look, it's a double-edged sword. We've had mixed experiences dealing with some of these individuals and these mugshot websites. On the one hand, many times you can spend a couple $100 and they actually will take down the person's photo, which can make a big difference if you're Googling someone and they haven't invested with Jay in actually getting good photos out there. And one of the photos that shows up in the Google search returns is a mugshot. Obviously, that doesn't help you in your professional life. A lot of these websites will actually take them down if you pay. But at the same time, I've also seen it go the other way where you have to be careful about how you do it because it's not uncommon for them to take it down from one website and then all of a sudden, magically, just days later, it pops up on another website. So then you end up paying again and again and again.
Horrible. Yeah, and there's some subtleties. Like one of the things we've worked on is Google search suggest. So a lot of times, if you type in the name, like I'm sure we'd never find anything bad, but you type in Evan Nierman, so then you're going to see like Evan Nierman reviews, and maybe sometimes you do nothing wrong, but somebody else with your name does something wrong. So you can find Evan Nierman arrest, Evan Nierman mugshot.
It's
But you
true.
can
And I would challenge you to Google me because you will not find anything negative about me because I have never been arrested. I
sorry,
have,
I restate that as John Smith, right?
no,
John
no, no.
Smith
I want you to search
mugshot.
my name. Search
Yeah.
my name because then it will, as you know, it'll help me SEO wise and you'll click on good content that it puts me in the correct light.
The example I was sharing is you can actually manipulate Google search suggest. So we've been able to get good terms. So what I'm talking about is when you type in a name and then Google shows 5 or 6 other variations. Similarly, they have the people also ask section. So we have been able to successfully manipulate Google search suggest. And I put that in the advanced strategies. Here's another advanced strategy. It's hard these days to create a Wikipedia page. There's another site called Everipedia, Everipedia, and it will rank in Google. The reason it's hard to create a Wikipedia page is because you need a lot of notability to have a Wikipedia page. But in the cases of some of the university president and the CEO of the oil and gas company, they did have some notability, and then we got them a whole bunch of media appearances and stuff, and then we were able to create a Wikipedia page. The Wikipedia page is going to rank top 3 for your name on Google immediately. We talked about buying websites. So those are some of the advanced strategies we use in these situations. All
I
right.
just wrote down the Everipedia because I actually hadn't heard of that one before. So thank you. I learned something important on this.
All right. Next up is proactive strategies to prevent future damage. You want to take that one?
Sure. I mean, this is to me at the crux of what it means to press the truth. And it means you're doing things on an ongoing basis in order to promote your personal brand or your firm. And this is, again, this is how you inoculate yourself down the road. The best defense is many times a good offense. And it's also a way to stay top of mind for your prospective referral partners or clients. And this is putting out press releases. As you pointed out, there is always something to talk about in terms of a company milestone or something to highlight. There is definitely content creation, which is easier than ever before. You can utilize tools like generative AI. You're obviously going to want to not just put something into chat gpt or one of the others and post it as is. You're going to want to edit it and use it as it's great at generating a first draft, a second draft, or a third draft, but there's no excuse now for people not to be creating content and then publishing that content, even if it's on properties that they control, such as their social media site or their website. But again, when you position yourself how you want to be seen and you speak at conferences or you go on a
Great
podcast, for
one. Yeah.
instance, this is a perfect example. And so putting some real world parameters around this. I'm going to appear on this podcast with you, and then you're going to publish the podcast. And when you do, you're going to promote the podcast and you're going to drive links back to your podcast. And I'm going to want people to also check out the podcast. So I'm going to be talking about it on social media. I'll probably post today thanking
Exactly.
Berkowitz for having me on. And then when the podcast actually is posted, I'm going to promote it. I'm going to talk about it. So there's just no excuse in this day and age not to be active, even if it's just working on your website and picking one or two social platforms like a LinkedIn.
It's actually a great strategy. And if you're a CEO or a partner in a law firm, you should have your twin turn or your PR company reach out and get you on podcasts because Evan's going to be amazed. And you all, when you do Google his name, and if it's 2 or 3 weeks after we publish this, I'd say there's an extremely high likelihood that this podcast is going to rank for his name because almost everybody who we featured, and I think part of that is because our YouTube channel is absolutely blown up. We have over 1 million YouTube views. Google owns YouTube, so those algorithms are linked. And so this podcast has been incredibly effective at doing proactive SEO for brands. Proactively, Evan said it right. Speaking events, media. Here's a great tip. I'm sure Evan knows this. It's a service called S.O.S, put out by Peter Shankman. It was formerly called Harrow. Peter founded Harrow. He sold it and then it crumbled. And then he publishes S.O.S. S.O.S, he sends out an email 3 times a day with journalists looking for experts to speak on topics. So it's a great way to get listed. Doing proactive media, proactive PR, proactive, we said cascading, publishing an article, cascading it, speaking at events, getting those social media handles. Those are all great ways to sort of write the history that Google's going to talk about you in advance. All right, we made it. Number 10, get back to brand building. So once we've settled the waters here, crisis averted, we've done a lot of work, 3-4 months, we've got our first page of Google under control. What are some of the things that you do to get back to brand building?
Yep. Well, that is ultimately the goal with both. If you find yourself needing rapid response or crisis communications, or you're engaging in online reputation repair, once you've settled it, what you're looking to do moving forward is to have an effective strategy for building your brand. And this means turning the page on whatever controversy existed and taking steps on an ongoing, consistent basis in order to promote your firm, your unique value proposition to clients or to customers. And you have to be an advocate for yourself. And so it includes a lot of tactics, both promoting yourself online and doing some of the things that Jay and his team do in terms of digital marketing and showing up with pay-per-click digital campaigns so that you're at the top of the search results, investing in SEO so that you're showing up on the first page of Google, and then down the road, you're coming up as a suggested expert in your field when people are using AI in order to treat those as a search engine. These are all things that people have the opportunity to utilize. And to your point before, Jay, speaking to reporters, going on podcasts, dropping press releases, creating content, applying and securing awards. These are all ways that you can build your brand and you can tell the story about you and your firm and attract the kinds of clients that you ultimately want. And I would say one thing that people don't think about is you want to specifically go after where your prospective clients are getting information. So if you work in a unique area of the law, you shouldn't just be thinking about yourself as an attorney in broad general terms. Niche down. Think about where the folks are who could potentially become your clients and try to go after appearances and mentions and be a content creator on the sites where those individuals go. Hunt where the animals are, fish where the fish are.
You mentioned a great one, and that's win awards. And people always ask me, like, how do you win awards? And I say, well, it's pretty simple. Apply for the award nominations, because I've run a couple of award shows and I've judged like the Webbies and things like that. There's so few entries that the easiest way to win is just enter. That's a great one. Awards, they get listed all the time. A couple of things I would suggest in number 10, get back to brand building, is maybe do a new launch. If you've had a product in development, triple down, make it a huge product launch, press releases, media events, and get a new news out there. Because Google will always favor the newest news. But if you can really hire a PR firm, do a bunch of social media, spend money on marketing, advertising this thing, even if it wasn't the biggest initiative and you didn't have plans to spend money on it, now you got a chance to rewrite the narrative, get the new news out there. Maybe by the same token, you can do a community initiative. If every year you sponsor the 5K run in your community, obviously it'll look a little fake if you just, all of a sudden you're doing a bunch of community stuff. But if there's something like that that you authentically believe in and support, now you can come out and sponsor it. And maybe you could even pay for the press release that the 5K does, but feature all the sponsors and stuff like that. So let me quickly review the 10 golden rules of reputation management and crisis communications. And then we're going to give Evan the 5 quick snappers. Number one, protect yourself in advance. Evan said, share with care and post with purpose. Number two, take action when the SHIT hits the fan. So you immediately want to get an expert like Evan involved, and then probably hire someone like us to fix the Google issues. Number three, press the truth. I really like that. You said you could own the facts. You've got to push the truth because you can't just state the truth. You've got to push it out there. Number four, start with the low-hanging fruit. So I said things like Google ads, getting your Google business profile fixed up, getting your website search engine optimized, buying your own name on websites, own the important real estate. So same thing, not only should you own your own name and your firm's name, but all the .orgs, .nets, .reviews. Number six, monitor and measure, set up your Google alerts. Number seven, manage Google and social media reviews. So you should be proactively getting Google reviews and proactively be monitoring what people are saying about you and asking questions in social media. Number eight, we had some advanced strategies. Evan had a great one about getting awards. I never thought of that one in this context. And how do you get awards? You enter the awards competition. We talked about ways you can actually remove Google reviews, and we have a way to manipulate the Google search suggest what Google says in addition to your name in the drop down on the Google search. Number nine, proactive strategies to prevent future damage. And Evan had a bunch of great tips there about getting in the media. And you should subscribe to S.O.S, which is, we'll put a link in the show notes to Peter Shankman's S.O.S service, where the journalists are looking for experts. You should do that right now, immediately. That's a great way to monitor when someone's looking for your expertise. And number 10, get back to brand building. Do all the basic things. All the things we talked about here in a reactionary mode should be part of your proactive positioning to protect your brand. And some things you can do are like new launches and community initiatives. Evan, we did it. That was awesome. I always ask a couple questions at the end of the podcast. What's an app or technique you use for personal productivity?
I have something called the Oak Journal, which is a physical book. I write in it as the very first thing I do every morning, where I express gratitude, 3 things I'm grateful for, and then I highlight the 2 or 3 most vital things that I need to get done that day. And what I like about the Oak Journal is it goes on a weekly cadence, and at the end of it, each week, you're able to evaluate how you did. And for me, it's a really important tool to just keep me focused on what matters most.
I love that. My mastermind we all used to post in our group at the end of the week any wins or losses. And somehow that petered out. I wish we were still doing it. Best business books.
Best business books. Anything by Jim Collins is worth reading for sure. And huge fan of anything and everything that he writes. I also think one of the best business books is actually more of a psychology book, and it's called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And it's really talking about how to operate in your zone of genius. And of course, 2 must-read business books. One would be The Cancel Culture Curse, which is my book about cancel culture. And then my other book called Crisis Averted, about high stakes and crisis communications. And it gives you PR strategies to protect your reputation and the bottom line. So gotta check out those 2, of course.
Awesome. And last one, where can people get in touch with you?
Easy. You can find me at redbanyan.com. You can follow me on X at Evan Nierman. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find me on all the social media channels, YouTube, Instagram, etc. And you can always send me an email also at evan@redbanyan.com.
This was awesome. This was lots of fun. Thanks so much for doing it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jay. This was great.
Thank you for listening to the 10 Golden Rules of Internet Marketing for Law Firms podcast. Please send questions and comments to podcast@10goldenrules.com. That is podcast@TENGoldenrules.com.